I'll call this hybrid meeting of the Dedham Select Board to order. It is August 14th, 2025. And given that this is a hybrid meeting with some members participating remotely, all votes will be by roll call, and I'll start with the roll call of members. Jim?
Present.
Demetria?
Present.
Michelle?
Present.
And Dennis?
Present.
And the chair is present. Stephen, I'll turn it to you to establish quorum in your committee.
I would like to call the August 14th school committee meeting to order. We should have one member joining remote, but I don't know if he's on yet. That would be Mr. Josh Langmead, so we'll just do a quick roll call of who's here first, and I'll ask for Josh's, and if not, if he joins, he can just state that he's present. So, Ms. Toomey.
Present.
Mr. Polito.
Yes.
Dr. Gallant.
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Present.
Mr. Stefano.
Present.
And I am here. Mr. Langmead. Okay, not at this time, but I'll make sure he knows to say that he's present.
He's connected.
Yeah, he's there.
He's connected.
Oh. Mr. Langmead, if you can just say present.
All right, well, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then when he comes on, we can make sure to put him in. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, well, thank you to our colleagues on the school committee for joining us for a joint meeting so that we can discuss the first agenda item of the Facilities Master Plan Work Group. And we will start with a presentation of the Facilities Master Plan Initiative. And I will kick things off. Move to the next slide. As most of us likely remember, last winter, Dedham experienced a failed vote on a debt exclusion to build a new Oakdale Elementary School. And while that particular proposal did not move forward, it sparked really important conversation and questions from the community, such as, what is the long-term plan for our facilities? How will we pay for multiple new schools? And what about our other town buildings as well? And what is the big picture and plan for the maintenance and rehab of all of our buildings? In response to those questions, we are proposing utilizing the Facilities Master Plan process to create a community-driven facilities master plan to provide formal analysis and comprehensive overview of Dedham's current and future facility needs. And so we have an opportunity before us. What we're presenting tonight is to develop the first ever town-wide facilities master plan here in Dedham. And it's not just another study. It's a strategic roadmap that can guide our infrastructure decisions for the long term, providing a plan for development and management of all of our municipal and school facilities. And the process will be thoughtful and will deeply engage the town in meaningful discussion and with great public input on a spectrum of ideas and priorities. And so over the past 20 years, we've made significant progress in maintaining and replacing outdated buildings. But as we all know, the reality is that many of our municipal facilities and school buildings still need attention. And rather than continue to address these piecemeal, This process will help us ensure that future decisions about building maintenance, upgrades, and replacements are informed by data aligned with long-term service needs, educational and financial goals, and supported by a collective community vision. And so, next slide. What does this plan encompass? This is a comprehensive study that will examine all municipal buildings, schools, municipal offices, public safety facilities, libraries, and other town-owned buildings. It will assess current structural conditions, overall use of space, accessibility, energy efficiency, and long-term maintenance goals. This gives us the complete picture that was missing from previous discussions. And every board and department will have meaningful opportunities to engage in the process relative to buildings under their authority and control. And the process will include a thorough and meaningful community engagement process so that all residents feel heard and acknowledged with their ideas, priorities, concerns, wishes, wants, and comments. Next slide. If the school committee and select board vote to proceed, here's what will happen next. We'll establish a steering committee with representatives from elected and appointed boards to oversee the process. And again, I want to emphasize the word process. This work group will manage a consultant to be hired through a request for proposals, facilitate robust public engagement, and serve as the vital link between our residents and town leadership. The work group, the suggested work group is made up of the following voting members: school committee representative, select board representative, finance and warrant committee, planning board, building planning and construction committee, and school building rehabilitation committee, and supported by the following non-voting members: town manager, superintendent of schools, director of finance, deputy superintendent of schools, assistant director of finance, who's also the director of procurement, director of facilities, and director of technology and information systems. And so lastly, why does this matter now? This master plan would provide what residents rightfully ask for: a comprehensive view of how we build and pay for not just one or two elementary schools, but our high school, our other facilities, and maintenance over time. And it will produce recommendations for consideration to help guide us on how to sequence these projects, how to fund them sustainably over time. And I think that this is an important and strategic process for us to undergo. I'll pass the baton over to Stephen Acosta, Chair of the School Committee.
Thank you. So just a couple of school considerations, some things that we look at from the school committee side. School committees are community buildings, just like town buildings, and school costs and the cost to fund school building projects are financed by taxpayers and other revenues, just like regular town government expenses. I think that's important to share. We're not looking at things in a vacuum or in a silo. We really need to have funding that addresses all of these buildings. School facilities can play a role in both the cost and flexibility of how we deliver education in Dedham. They impact the educational model, which is directly how we deliver education. The influences and can be influenced by the availability of space in existing or planned buildings. If we're to change our educational model in any way, we have to have the space that allows us to do that. The configuration of our school buildings and our facilities also impacts the operating costs of the district. For example, there are things like the efficiency of staff, class sizes, building and or maintaining similar spaces such as gyms, libraries, auditoriums. The more buildings we have with more of those spaces, the more that can cost. From where I sit, I see the opportunity for a clear, structured plan to identify a path forward that will allow for better financial predictability and better planning to ensure that our school facilities are safe and appropriate for modern learning without compromising other town facilities or the funding for those projects. So, just a quick hit.
Thanks, Stephen. Pass it over to Leon.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Leon Goodwin, I'm the town manager. And I'm not going to delve too far into the details here, but this is just a chart that shows an overview of our town and school buildings. There are 7 school buildings. There are 14 town buildings listed here. You can see that while we've made a lot of progress in the last 20 years updating, we have a new public safety building that combined 2 separate facilities into one. We have a new town hall that combined the Council on Aging into the town hall building and brought a number of departments up to the 21st century. We have a number of facilities that are very old, that require a lot of maintenance, that are perhaps too small or too large for their current use. And all of that leads to an inefficient use of everyone's tax dollars to keep that current model. So what other communities have learned and what we're hoping to do is that through a facilities master planning process, we can be strategic with our limited tax dollars and make decisions that are the best for the community for the next 10, 15, 20 years as we move forward our annual budget, which addresses both operating and capital costs, which are largely driven by the buildings that you see listed there. So again, I'm not going to reiterate a lot of what Chair Bowles-Welsh said, but at the end of this process, we are hoping to have better data with which to make decisions. And better data will help us make better decisions to move the community forward. We've heard from a lot of folks that we need to work on our school buildings. We've heard from other folks that we need to work on some of our other buildings as well. And by aligning our needs with our realistic opportunities to move those projects forward over a long-term process, I think we can capitalize on the collaboration and the cooperation between these two bodies, and we'll also be able to have an inclusive and transparent process that shows the community how we're making these decisions. So it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It will happen through an inclusive, community-driven process with a lot of community engagement, so that we make sure that we're using your tax dollars to make the decisions about the community's buildings. And then turn it over to Superintendent Murphy.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Okay. So the foundation of a school building project is the determined educational model. So the current educational model in Dedham, we have 7 schools serving a little bit below 2,700 students, pre-K through grade 12. We have 1 early childhood center, pre-K, serving pre-K and kindergarten, 4 elementary schools, grades 1 through 5, 1 middle school, grades 6 through 8, and 1 high school, grades 9 through 12. Additionally, across the district, we have many school-housed special education programs that includes both partially inclusive special education services as well as sub-separate classroom settings. So as we begin to consider our next building project, the question for our community is, how do we continue to provide high-quality, rigorous 21st century education in a fiscally responsible manner? So what we will do to begin to have that conversation around what our foundation looks like is we will begin to ask ourselves if what we are doing and the way we are servicing students and employing our educational model is working, or if we want to make some shifts and changes to that. So we'll look at the current vision and our future vision for the Department of Teaching and Learning. We will look at our district's educational philosophy and goals. It's the what and how we deliver 21st century education. Do we continue with our grade-based model across the district, or do we consider some additional possibilities? We will examine our current students' needs and demographics. Who are our students and what do they need? We will do our best to project those needs. We will examine facility design and ensure for flexibility. So a school building intentionally designed to support the selected educational model and instructional practices and programming and the needs of students and staff. So that is consideration around project-based and STEM maker spaces and providing that kind of environment for students, looking at safety and accessibility, outdoor learning classrooms, and teacher and student breakout and collaboration spaces, just to name a few. And then finally, looking at scalability and sustainability and ensuring that the selected educational model is adaptive over time to respond to the evolving needs of our students, instructional practices, and community priorities. And I think we've learned from some of the building projects that our students are filling these spaces, and we are concerned about some of the class sizes in particular buildings. So building and planning proactively to be able to shift and have some flexibility if our district demands within a school building should shift. So determining the educational model does fall in the purview of our school committee. They will take in considerable community feedback, both from the administrative team and our educators, and that will run parallel and also be embedded in the work of the master plan process.
And I think process is again, the key word here. This is going to be a lengthy process, and where we stand today is really on the precipice of a launch, and that's if the school committee and the select board choose to move forward with this. Over the next several months, again, if that decision is made, we would have additional votes where the select board and the school committee would vote to establish a steering committee, as we saw on a prior slide. Town staff would issue an RFP, solicit bids. The steering committee would evaluate those proposals and award a contract to a professional consultant. And that would happen sometime August to November, again, on the proposed timeline. And then the work in earnest would begin sometime this winter, December 2025 is the goal, with the consultant kicking off with some study and other meetings. And then we anticipate that the entire project, again, if the community chooses to move forward, would be 12 to 18 months. We've looked at a number of these that have been completed in other communities. Some have been done in 12 months, others closer to 18 months. Because we envision such a robust public engagement process and we really want to hear from the community, we're thinking that the 18 months is probably the most reasonable, but it could go a little bit faster than that depending on scheduling and making sure that we get public engagement moving early in the process. And then, again, as we've indicated, this is really just the beginning of a conversation. With the town, we'll have a subscription topic for this. We'll have a town project website as well, and we'll continue to keep the public engaged through press releases, social media, et cetera, as we do with every major project in the community.
Thank you, Leon. So questions and comments from, I'll pass it over to Chair Costa for comments from the school committee.
Any school committee members want to offer any comments, questions, thoughts?
I will. So I guess thank you for this. A lot of this is, I guess, kind of a surprise to me on where this is coming from. I know from what I've heard through, I guess, incidentals, there's been some already working group or steering group, some super secret, top secret group that's already been, I guess, created with Stephen, Aaron. There are others that are on this board, which is a kind of surprise to me when I heard about this, when the school committee had a small working group about how to move forward with this project. So it's a little bit blindsiding to me. I know I found out about this meeting last Thursday in the afternoon, and it was somehow in the front page of the Times the next day. So I guess it's very, ingenuine for me to be here, I guess, because I know I'm looking at this for the first time. Courtesy is to send this to us ahead of time, and and to look at it. I disagree with this master plan. I don't think this is the proper use of funds for us at this point or at this juncture. I don't think this master plan is going to tell us anything in 18 to 24 months from now that we don't already know sitting here today. We know that we have 3 elementary schools that need a significant amount of work or replacement. We know we have a high school that needs a significant amount of work or replacement. We know the Dolan Center is ready to fall down. We know that, Capen, which isn't even on your list up there, needs work as well. So I don't see what the value is going to be in 18 months from now to spend $300,000 to have them come back and say that we need new buildings. No kidding. I'd rather be using that money either to do a true educational master plan, which is what Franklin did, is they did on the school side, purely speaking on the school side, not trying to step on the town's toes at all, but on the school side, they did a master plan, facilities and educational model master plan, which gave options. This isn't going to give us options. So if we change our master plan, we can't give the master plan 15 different educational model opportunities. They're not going to go through all of that. They're not going to say, well, you could do this, you could do that on 15 different examples. Not for the 300 grand that we're talking about here. I think it's just a bad use of funds. What this feels like, and this report can come out and say that we need all these new buildings. Our checkbook is only going to take us so far. At the end of the day, it's going to be what it's going to be. We can only put so much burden on the taxpayers until the Robin Reyes Fund opens back up, and that gives us more opportunity. What this feels like is like, my wife and I going out and get an architect to do a beautiful renovation plans to the back of our house. That, spending $20,000 in architectural plans for a renovation, but knowing we only have a budget of 50 grand. It's not going to happen. That's what this feels like. It's going to come back and tell us all of this. It's not going to get us in a better place than we are sitting here today. The educational model, which should not be necessarily part of the master plan facilities, that is a school committee, under school committee's purview, and we need to take a look at it, which we talked about a few weeks ago between a review or a comprehensive review. The more and more I think about it, it should be much more of a comprehensive review over how we educate our kids. Our education model is what we need to figure out, and if our buildings, how we want to teach and educate, and see if we can fit it into our buildings, or look at a new building that we can help fit that into, which is what Franklin did. And the town did their master plan, and they can do, on the town side. But again, I think this is a complete waste of taxpayer money. It's $300,000. That's delaying the town field fees for all the youth sports for a year. That's keeping our music program for 1 year. This is not a smart use of funds. It's not going to get us in a better position than we are here today, except knowing that we need a new HVAC system. We need a new HVAC system or new roof or things we already know today. We know our buildings are falling apart. I don't see this as a wide use of money, and there's no way I'm in favor of this. Thank you.
Other comments from school committee? Mr. Rodriguez?
Thank you for putting this together. I really appreciate it. I've done facilities master plans before, and it's not just to look at what we have in our current arsenal and what needs to be updated. What this specific master plan is going to be looking at is various options of how to take care of our buildings, replace our buildings, consolidate buildings. What are we going to do with our surplus buildings if, say, that two town buildings merge together? What's going to happen with that other surplus building? It will ensure that there is a timeline of replacement, renovation with rough costs, because we don't have that right now. Everything is kind of like shooting in the dark, even with our town facilities and also on our school buildings. So I'm in favor of this facilities master plan. It's what's needed in order to paint the whole picture and guide us on a path forward that is more financially stable. Thank you.
Hold on, let's see if anyone else, other members? Vice Chair Toon.
Thank you, as everybody else has said, for putting this together. I think I'm somewhere in between where you both are coming from, because I can completely understand and respect that I don't want us putting a lot of money into something if we're going to get information that we already know. However, if for a second, I know I'm sitting up here as a member of the school committee, But if I take that hat off for just a moment, I'm also a taxpayer. And as somebody who's been on the school committee for the last couple of years and was part of the last building project that did not pass, I still feel like I can't always answer that question of how much this is going to cost for the entire town. So that's why I'm in favor of this, because as a taxpayer, I want to know what the piece that I am responsible for when I'm going back out to the community and asking them to vote in favor of whatever our plan is going to be. I want to feel confident that I can respond to that answer, and I want to feel confident that I can afford it, and that I can afford whatever it is that our town is putting forth, or that our town has plans from a maintenance perspective, from a new building perspective, from a consolidating of building perspective. So I'm in favor of going forward with this. I would ask that we leverage whatever information is existing, and that we don't completely hand everything over to whatever consultant is selected and say, go forth and do what you do best, that we keep control over it. And we say, nope, you don't need to go down this path because we already know this information about these schools. We need you to focus here where we don't have all the information. I think it's time that the steering committee, whoever it's made up of, and the community, that we are in, and I'm doing the whole driver thing again, and I swore I wasn't going to keep using that theme, but that we're in the driver's seat. And I think that, you know, if we can maintain that kind of control and those boundaries or the parameters, whatever word we want to use, hopefully we will be closer to that 12-month period or timeline, because there's stuff that we can already offer them, and that we prevent them from going outside into areas that we don't need them to tell us, to your point, what we already know.
So I hear what you both say. I totally understand that. But if you want to hit a 12-month kind of period on this, put this to superintendent, a comprehensive educational model review. I'm going to throw it out there. It's going to take us 12 months to get through a true top-down, this is how we teach, this is what we want, this is what we want in our buildings, right? I'm assuming 12 months? That's a question more than a statement, I'm sorry. So
I can go back and look at how long it took the last group when you embarked previously.
But I think on the previous ones, I know that at the last meeting, Dr. Kelly had corrected me about it, that was specifically around the use of space. It was a very narrow educational model review, not a comprehensive review of the entire network. Is that a fair assessment? I don't want to put words in people's mouths, so please.
Any review of the educational model as it related to either the Oakdale, the ECEC, or the Avery and the middle school projects were specifically in the context of those building projects.
Okay.
And were, you know, at that, I can't speak to the ones prior to Oakdale, or the ECEC actually, but, you know, they were an articulation of the model as it stood, helping the MSBA understand how is this new facility going to help us achieve the aspirational goals we have for education for our students. So it's not like a K through 12 or pre-K through 22 look at the model. None of those were.
Okay, so I think that if we're going to look at that model, because a change of schools going from 4 to 3, 4 to 1, we're going to at least have 2, I guess. Avery's not going to run that. But if we're going to change to a model to that degree, or make it an upper and junior high and do some collaboration like that, that is a significant change of educational model. Would that be a fair assessment?
It's true. It stems from conversations in the community that evolved after the failed vote. There was a lot of talk about, can we think about this differently? So that's where this proposal kind of comes from.
And so, but just on the educational model side, my point is it's going to take a significant amount of time to then preface it, to then how somehow that incorporates this and still meet a 12 or an 18-month time frame. I think on a school, I'm purely speaking on the school side, I don't think is necessarily worth it. On the school side, we know kind of where we stand on our buildings. From a town side, which I'm not not trying to pit people against each other here, right? So, but from a town side, I don't think you've done this in a long time. So if you want to move forward on the town side, that is outside of our discussion point, and you guys can do whatever you guys want to do from your leadership perspective. But from the school side, when you talk about like the maintenance of our buildings and our maintenance plans, we have a director of facilities, we have an assistant director of facilities. They should be able to tell us how we should be maintaining our buildings. Yes, I agree, they're not HVAC technicians or electricians that aren't going to be able to totally see a problem, that the electrical board is going to short out in 6 weeks from now. But if is that what's going to come out of this? But are we going down to that in depth on this plan? I know that's how this money was originally used, and now we're reallocating under proper law. We're allowed to reallocate towards this. But my position is I would stay with what was originally planned, what was originally sold to town meeting, that we're going to go through each building and decide and do a true facility plan on that specific building. I think from the school side, with the potential change of an educational model, it doesn't make sense. It is a waste of taxpayer money that could be otherwise used for better things. I know, Stephen, you and I talked about it earlier this afternoon. What change would I do? I would look at what Franklin did. I'd be going to town meeting looking for a request to do a facility and educational model plan and the funding for that, so we can look at all of this. If we combine I know the conversation is people are more apt to go to consolidated elementary schools. I think in concept, people say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Financially makes a lot of sense. But what does it look like? Because if you're going to consolidate Oakdale and Riverdale and put it on Riverdale, Oakdale's not going to want it. If you consolidate the other way around, Riverdale's not going to want it. They want to know or the question is, what's going to happen to my space? That's what that's what we need to be doing a lot more. I mean, that's part of the educational, if we do it on the school side, specifically on the school side, that should be looking at. Spending $300,000 for what we're looking at today, I think the money can be better spent in a lot more areas that would affect our kids, our community, and our taxpayers in our town and our seniors. That's my point. Thank you, again.
Any further comments from school committee before we kick it to the select board?
I just have one. Just a different way of, because I'm kind of like, I don't want to repeat what Ms. Toomey said, because very much like really great points on both sides. I'm just coming at it from a different aspect. I'm looking at it like in a different way, different perspective. This plan pulls together the town in a way that probably should have been done long ago. And I'm coming from a perspective of somebody who has not lived here for 80 years, right? However, it is coming from a perspective of a lot of the decisions that we make, to Mr. Polito, to your point about the money that we spend and the planning that we've already done, some of that can't be done in a vacuum, and I've learned that along the way. Some hinges on other decisions that the town make. Ultimately, when it comes to taxpayers, what are they going to vote for? They're going to do this or this. And if they don't have all the full plan and the information in front of them, and this is my perspective of why I'm liking this, is they're going to vote for, well, whatever, who's ever pulling them that way. Not because a town has come together collectively to come up with a plan. I don't love I'm with you, I don't love the timeline. I'm like 12 to 18 months, and then, however, I would hate to go down a road of repeating the same mistakes again when this brings a new or fresh way to do it. That's the viewpoint from which I'm coming from.
And just before we pass over, I just want to state, just from where I'm looking at it, of why I support this. And part of this is in the draft request for proposal, that whoever is bidding will work with the Dedham School Committee and the administration to review the advantages and disadvantages of Dedham's current educational model and explore alternative models with a particular examination of educational, fiscal, and community impacts. And I think to Mr. Polito's point, again, going back to these don't exist in a vacuum. The educational model does impact the facilities. The facilities can impact the educational model. I do think how this RFP is written will get us closer to something that Franklin has, where it is more embedded. And I think it's important also that as school committee, that is under our purview. And so that seems to me that is pretty clearly written in the RFP, that whoever the consultant hired is will work with us as we work with the public and with administration to execute that. so we can review the educational model. I do think it's one of those things that the educational model has existed how it has for at least as long as I went through Dedham Public Schools, so that's been a decent amount of time. We are at a very different time educationally, financially. It is, I think, to me, time to really give a hard look to this, that it's not just about what the next project is and does our educational model suit the next project, or how do we make the next project suit that. It's what is the best educational model for Dedham, and then how can we build a master plan for all of our facilities so that, at least on the school side, those facilities live up to our educational model. So I'm in support of this, but I will kick it back to the select board now.
Thank you, Stephen. I'll open up for comments from my board. I don't know if it's easier, given that we're hybrid, for me to pass it to Dennis first, so we don't forget him. Dennis, would you like to make any comments on this proposal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to pull up, I do have a couple questions here. Number one is, I do want to just thank you for, and everyone, Stephen, Leon, Nancy, everybody for doing this, because, I mean, we're kind of like a game situation, right? Like, I mean, how do you pick up the pieces after a failed vote and try to give some direction, you know, to the process here? It's not easy, and I don't think there's any way that, you know, there's no easy way to do that. So I appreciate the leadership that you have shown in doing that, so thank you for that. I have to ask Leon, have we done similar facility studies? We've done other studies. We have a master plan, and we've looked at facilities. How have we looked at our facilities as on the town side in the past?
So we do have the community master plan, which was an effort under the purview of the planning board, and that was a very community-driven project. It didn't specifically look at facilities. I think, as Mr. Polito indicated, the schools have had a master plan for their facilities. And the last time the town did a facilities master plan that was really all-encompassing was in 2004, and it was, you know, even a couple of years later, it was already outdated just because of some of the changes that were made. So that one wasn't comprehensive. So this would be the first truly comprehensive facilities master plan that looked at both school and town or municipal buildings together and put them in context so that the community could see all of the investments that need to be made, not just siloed.
The other thing I wonder, Leon, and I just want to say this too, is I know we're discussing this as boards tonight. I know the construction committee will have representation from our library and Park and Rec, I believe, but, you know, just that they're not, should they ever be a part of the creation of this, because they run facilities too? That's just one question I want to point out. I mean, I like the idea for the town 1,000%, because I think we really need it. And I don't think for the town it would be a waste of money. I think it would actually pay off in the long term, because I think we really need to think differently about how we look at facilities. And I just look across from the town side, and I see that we have so many buildings that we can no longer afford to maintain. We have buildings that we don't necessarily need or use. We have buildings that are literally in disrepair. And I think we've always kind of taken this look of it, like, we don't want to sell land because that will burn us in the long term. And that's sort of been like our default way of handling it. But, you know, given the financial challenges that the town is facing, I do think it's time for us to take a long, hard look at some of the land and the facilities we own, and whether it really makes sense for us to long-term continue to own facilities that, quite frankly, we cannot afford to maintain. So from the town side, I think it is reasonable to do this. That said, you know, we need to know, eyes wide open, that we could spend $300,000 on this, and will this really build consensus? I don't know. You know, I mean, I think it's hard to do that, to get people on the same page for anything these days. My concern about this is that it's going to lead to paralysis by analysis, that we're going to spend all this time doing it, and we're not going to continue to move forward and take action. And, you know, I am thinking a little bit of the school side on that, because I do think about all the young families in the process of the Oakdale school thing who really wanted and were eager to have a school, And, in doing this, we're going to take 12 to 18 months, and it's just going to slow us down a little, even more from taking next steps. And I would say that, even if we do this study, it doesn't stop us from moving forward with the next school project, if that's what we need. I think that this really, to me, feels like, from the school side, like this is the first step towards consolidation of schools, because this is the kind of study I think we would need to do to justify that and build consensus for that. And I would just encourage my colleagues on the school committee to continue to think of, what the model is that Dedham wants to employ, and the fact that the vote in February, it only lost by less than 400 votes, and there were people that I think, it was clear, direction given from the electorate about, how we could maybe make a better project, and we really want to take all this time to take next steps forward. And I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just saying that we do have a lot of people that are counting on us to come up with answers to our school building facility question, and whether for that, and to constituents, I also want to say, because I just have lived through this whole thing, I know there were a lot of people that value neighborhood schools, and I feel like if you value neighborhood schools, I think this is time for your voice to make sure it's heard, because neighborhood schools are going to be expensive. And I think that one of the things this report is going to do is it's going to open the door for us to look at all solutions. And when we went through this process, we heard so many different, everybody's got a plan for how they want to do this. And this is going to really formalize us looking and figuring out what is the best option. And I'm not necessarily against consolidation at all. I think it's something to look at. But I just know how many constituents were passionate about neighborhood schools. And I think it's important that they make sure their voice is heard in this process, because there will be a downside in the cost to that, and I think that will be something that will come up in this process. So I appreciate everyone's time and the leadership everybody showed, and I look forward to hearing from my constituents and from other people on the board as we ultimately try to make a decision on this. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Michelle?
Sure. Thanks again to everybody who's been working on this, and for the school committee to be here. I think it is important that we talk this through together. I do too see this plan as directly responsive to the feedback we got after the Oakdale vote for more leadership, more collaboration, more long-term planning. I think those are the three things that we kept hearing over and over again. No doubt there is urgency. There's urgency around the schools, and it's hard to think of any delay in moving forward with those. But I also believe that we'll end up with being able to do more and do better if we take a step back and really evaluate what we have, what we need, and make a plan that works long-term, both educationally and financially, to get both the best configuration of buildings and the best plan financially for the town and the taxpayers. For reasons of both cost and urgency, I agree, we don't want to duplicate efforts. I think anyone in this room could put the order of buildings that need to be replaced in the same order that a consultant did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, would do tomorrow, would do 5 years from now. But I don't see that as what this is. I don't see it as a facilities assessment. I mean, there was a point that that's what it was going to be, but this is a master plan, and they are different. And this is really more about how our buildings are used, and how they meet our needs and our wants in our communities, where there's efficiencies, how they can be used in ways we haven't thought about. Yes, about consolidation, but not necessarily, and having some fresh eyes really look at that. And it's my understanding, but I would like to hear more from other experts, that this will be able to merge a look at the educational model with a look at the facilities, and I do think that has to go hand in hand. Like I think somebody else said, the educational model is informed by, only certain things are possible depending on the buildings, and they dictate each other. They have to go hand in hand, and it is written into the RFP. We should all look at that closely and make sure we're getting out of it what we want to get out of it. So I'm anxious to hear from what the community has to say, but I'm inclined to support this and don't think we can delay, because we need to get the RFP out there and get this going so that we are looking at new schools and other buildings sooner than later.
Thank you, Michelle. Jim?
Sure. Thanks very much for putting this together and, reviewing the slides this afternoon. Sort of it raised a lot more questions for me. But I know that we do have a select board meeting that we also have to do, so we're almost an hour into this meeting, and so because we bundled them together, I think it's going to be a lot longer. So for those that are waiting for the select board meeting, we apologize. I know we're going to be way behind in our agenda, so just stay with us. So thank you. You know, I think the important part of this, first of all, for the town to do nothing is irresponsible. You know, during the last process, you know, one of the criticism was that the select board was not heard from, that they were silent. It's because the select board at the time didn't speak up for the various, because it's not their lane, so to speak. And so I think if this goes forward, the main focus to me is going to be the governance. Because what I don't want this to turn into is another SBRC committee. And what I'm hearing tonight is that might be what some people think is going to happen. And that's not going to happen. So that's why the governance that I talked to Leon about last week is the extremely important part of what this is, what this isn't, what the goals are of the committee, and at the end of the process, they're finished. When they submit their report to the boards, their job is done. And I think that's going to take some time to develop that governance, because there's a lot of moving parts in here, and there's a lot of different, you know, expectations. And I understand the educational model, you know, that needs to be done. You know, I question whether how much of an education model should be in this process. Should it, shouldn't it be? I don't want to take the role of the SBRC away of what their job is going to be once this is done. So it's sort of, it's going to be tough to put it all together, but I believe that both committees can put it together and put something together. Because before this committee meets, I believe that the select board and the school committee have to both agree on the governance, because so when everybody goes in and looks at the process, everybody has eyes wide open and know what we're going to be doing. You know, there's a lot that needs to be done, and it's going to take some time. I didn't know the 300,000 until Chris mentioned it today of what potentially you know, money will be, how much of a process. But I think you have to do something, and right now, people meaning our residents are asking questions. You know, where do we stand on all our buildings? I mean, as Michelle just mentioned, we can all number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which needs to be done. That's pretty easy, but it's how do you do it? How do you move forward? What is the cost? And how does the town afford to do various things? So there's a lot of questions. I tell you, I would love to be on this committee, but as the CEO at MSBA, I can't. But I do understand how process and studies work, and I think with the right framework, with the right governance, you know, it can be successful. Because it's not only going to be the people that are going to sit at the table, it's the community. The community, everybody has their own little niches. There's going to be some that are going to be focused on strictly the schools. There's going to be some that are going to be focused on our libraries. There'll be some that will be focused on our public works. And there's all sorts of various things. And to take and put that all together, that's going to be a monumental task for this committee. But by having the guidelines and the governance of what is expected will help everybody understand. So look forward to seeing a draft of a governance, and as everybody will just we'll just take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Demetria.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jim, and thank you for everybody who put this together. So, Jim, you basically...
I didn't read...
You're reading my screen.
I can't read. I cannot read that far away.
I can't see that either, but I think you were reading that. Because, you know...
You say it better than I.
As I was going through this, you know, listening to what everyone had to say here and what I was reviewing, I was confused. I was confused on exactly what this is, to the point where I actually pulled, you know, what was brought forward to the capital improvement budget request form A to see exactly what this was. Right, and so it says a townwide assessment of all town-owned buildings, including schools, libraries, and municipal buildings, to create a comprehensive report of facility conditions. So this is saying that it's looking at the buildings, which is what I originally thought. And it's $400,000, correct? It's $300,000 from us and a $100,000 grant. Are we still, is that still the case, or?
We are pursuing the grant, but we did not get the grant, so it would be.
So it is just the $300,000, okay. So I'm just going to kind of ask my questions and then go into my comments as well. As far as who was on this group or working group that came up with this facilities master plan? Who's on it?
Who's on?
Who was on this committee that created this document?
There was not a committee, but there was a group of myself, Stephen, Leon, Nancy, Ian, and who did it? Nan. And also the planning board representative, not representative, it wasn't a working committee. Jess Porter also participated in 2 meetings.
Okay, so that's who put this together. So that's, so somebody from the planning board, or she was just there?
The Leon and Ian and Nan put this proposal together, the RFP and the proposal.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go kind of through my questions here. So everybody bear with me, right? Municipal offices, can somebody tell me what we're talking about when you say that we're looking at municipal offices?
Well, so we have the town hall, obviously, but outside of that, we have Parks and Rec, we have DPW offices, we have engineering offices, so there's other municipal offices outside of town hall that we would want to take a look at.
That you'd want to take a look at, that's under the other, okay. Because where my concern falls in is like the failed school vote cannot be the driving force of this committee, right? And I think there is just a lot of confusion on what this committee should be charged to do, but also, is there another committee that has to happen, that has to work together? And the school committee, as a former school committee member, you have a big job in front of you to come up with an educational plan if you're going to be changing it at all. As someone, I don't know, you said you haven't lived here for 80 years, right? So.
Dimitri has.
I haven't, not 80. But it's something that really is has been a part of things, and it could be time for a change, right? But that's a really big project, and that's going to be something that you're going to have to do based on, at the end of the day, what you all believe is the right thing to do in your meetings. And so I'm not quite sure if you can really have that be part of this, right? That to me, for the school side, is very important that you have the answers to those questions, because then this committee is spinning its wheels, right? So the time frame, 12 months to 18 months, seems to be extremely aggressive to do everything that we're saying that we want to do, not to waste taxpayers' money. 2004, you weren't here. We did the previous study. Yes, part of it has dust on it, but a lot of it was done and was completed, and obviously it's time. This report, in 20 years, I'm not going to be sitting here, maybe someone else will be sitting here, you're going to look at it and say, what were they thinking, right? We didn't get it done. So it takes time. It's going to take time to get all these buildings done. So I guess at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is I see the need for all of it. I have to say that. I do see the need for all of it. I'm just not sure if what is being proposed here is actually the answer. Because when I also look at the composition, who's going to be appointing the Finance and Warrant Committee representative?
Finance and Warrant would make their decision.
They'll make their decision along with the school committee. Okay, how about Building, Planning, and Construction Committee? Would they convene and make their own decision on who they're putting on?
Yes.
Okay, so everybody would, from their school building rehab, and we're sure that, to me, when I look at this steering committee, do we need someone from the community to be sitting on here? Or is the representatives enough? Or is this structure, what should be used to look and evaluate the buildings, which is different? Am I making sense? I don't know if I'm making sense here, because it's, And I guess
Can
I'm
just
asking you as
restate
well.
your last point? Is this the right?
Is it the right
So-
composition
Right.
for a steering committee to really be getting all of the communication from the people, right? And to have all these meetings where we're having all that input, when they're looking at the facilities?
Well, so I think the point of the steering committee, and I appreciate that you bring it up, I think all of these are good discussion points. I think that the role of the steering committee is just that. It is to steer the process, where the steering committee will hire a consultant based on RFPs, a consultant with experience in creating facilities master plans. And the role of the steering committee is to guide the process, to make sure that the community engagement is meaningful and authentic and that people feel heard, to make sure that the facilities, the way that they're being discussed, the information that's being pulled that already exists is being integrated into the plan. So I really think that there's an importance in the word steering committee. And I think it's valid to bring up, well, how is this different than the SBRC? Because I think that is an important point that wasn't clearly made here. I mean, this process would ultimately result in a report that makes recommendations, and certainly those recommendations, will have impact. But I see the most important role of this committee is steering the process to make sure that we're not missing, the obvious. That we have an opportunity to understand, what it is that the community wants and needs, and how we're going to manage this and pay for this over the course of time and make priority decisions. So I want to be really clear. The SBRC has a very specific charge, and I appreciate Jim bringing that up, and that is to make a decision and build a school, right? And this is different. This is a holistic strategic plan on how it is that we're going to move forward. And yes, some of the exploration and data that comes out of this process will provide recommendations on how to move forward with schools and other buildings. I think it's so important that the process is steered correctly, and that we're getting, a really comprehensive picture of what it is that the community will support. I think the last thing that we can afford to do right now is have a lack of a majority voters willing to help invest in our community buildings in a way that feels right to them. And that's what I hope this process can come out with. It is expansive of all of our buildings. As Lori mentioned, we are all taxpayers. We're all going to be paying for this. And if we don't have a strategic understanding that's responsive to comments from the community during the last school vote, which was, what about the rest? We need a strategic plan guided by a professional with the input and steerage of our, of our community voices so that we can answer that. I hope that that's what comes out of this steering committee in this process.
And that clarified it much more in what you just said and what your vision was when you were putting all of this together. So my other kind of questions to go from here, or to kind of reiterate what my colleague said, is creating what the goals are going to be. So if I'm confused reading this, I think that's going to have to be really clear on what the beginning is, the middle, and the end, and that it's a working group, and this isn't the group that is going to actually see this all the way through, but bring it to a certain point. I think that if we decide to move forward with this, that the communication to both of these committees has to be constant and very, very clear to us and to the community and where it's going and what the decisions are, but that document on what your charge is, or who's ever sitting on this committee, is extremely important, so that the focus is right and that we're evaluating all the municipal buildings. And I'm not quite sure if land should be part of this, but I guess I'm open for discussion on that, or maybe it comes into recommendations if it comes out of what is found, right? If
So
that-
did you say land?
Land, yeah.
Oh, land.
Yeah,
Got it.
sorry, because
I didn't
Dr.
know it was
Tian
an
had
acronym
mentioned
for
looking at
something.
land, sorry, right.
This
and
is just facilities.
It's just facilities, so that's what I wanted to make sure as well, too. And then I think that it's important that we actually see the RFP, that both committees do look at that ahead of time and vote on that. And I actually honestly think that we should also be part of the selection process. I think that this steering committee should probably bring two forward, their top two consultants, and I think that we should also have a voice on who we select, because at the end of the day, we're going to be the ones charged going forward with any projects that come out of this and what our decision-making was. So I do think that that should be part of it. I think we should see the document on what we're going to be charging you with and coming up with a timeline of communication. So I think that with what everybody said, and you got me to really understand more of what you think that that outcome is going to be. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great. I appreciate, pushing for greater clarity, and I really genuinely appreciate criticisms. I believe that poking at the weak spots only creates a stronger plan. And to me, it's how can we take all of the feedback that we hear tonight and create a stronger plan, make sure that it's recorded and remembered for these, different points in time of decision-making, and how to integrate these in meaningful ways. So obviously we're way over time. I'll just make a couple comments based on things that I've heard, just for clarity for the public and otherwise. The $300,000 to fund this report is allocated by town meeting. Demetria read what the vote was on, and we're within scope of that request to fund this report. And I think it's important, to me, it would be hard to just do a pure facilities report because so many of the decisions on where we're going to invest in maintenance and others depends on what our strategic plan is for our buildings. Like, how do we know what we might want to invest into an Oakdale school or a Riverdale school if we don't know what the big plan is? And so to me, it's critical to understand and see that vision and path in order to make smart decisions on what kinds of resources to dedicate to different buildings. A governance, that is an important point, and I think it's really critical that we get right on that. So thank you for bringing that up, Jim. And we need to make sure that we have that in writing in a way that is clear and has the intended outcome, and teasing out that right balance as we've discussed. Yes, I certainly would expect that any consultant would draw on all existing data, reports, resources, facilities reports that have already been conducted. I would expect nothing less than a consultant to do that. So certainly that's an area that the steering committee can make sure happens with any consultant that we would work with. And I want to make sure that this is understood. The education model is wholly the responsibility of the school committee. But I think it's hard to talk about facilities master plans without understanding and knowing what the education model is. And I know that that was brought up. And so I see this as an alignment of that process and not one process trying to take over the other. But how can we start to make strategic decisions about our facilities if we don't know what the ed model is? And to pretend that they're two different completely independent processes that can proceed without the other is, to me, not realistic, and that the ed model would certainly need to be decided on by the school committee and solely by the school committee in alignment with any strategic review and decision-making that would be part of this process. And last, I'll just iterate too, to me, the timeline was my biggest friction point. Like, how can we take realistically 18 months to do this review when we know that there's water coming through the windows of some of our school buildings, when we know that there are families who want their children in new buildings? But as I stipulated, I don't see any room for failure in moving forward with replacing another building in our community. And I don't know how we can get to a majority vote and a feeling that the community understands that this is something that they feel comfortable with and that they can move forward with if we don't see the big picture. And I just want to expand that the big picture includes all of our buildings because we are paying for them, whether they come from one vote or another, or a town meeting decision, or it's all coming out of our pockets, and we want to feel that we're contributing to investments that are meaningful for us. And so I think it's really hard for us to move forward without having this strategic vision. And so anyway, I've said more than enough, but I appreciate everyone's comments. I'm going to make sure to carefully review them afterwards so that we can make a stronger proposal and keep those comments and criticisms coming, because that only builds a better process for everyone. So thank you.
Do you mind if could I have a question, kind of more ordering questions? I know that Demetria brought up who was part of this to create this, and I know you said a couple, we kind of faded off on a couple, kind of in a couple.
I didn't. I stated it clearly.
Okay, that's fine. So my question is that this is an RFP that we're supposed to be voting on as well as the select board. Is that the correct understanding of that?
Yeah, at a future vote.
Okay,
It's not
so
happening
I guess I
tonight.
have two questions to that point.
Yep.
One is that who is in charge of updating this and who's going to be strategically on that? Is that something that we should be deciding who's doing this, or something that you're independently doing?
Well, you should go through your chairs. So, my members can go through me and you can go through Stephen. And, ultimately we're working with Leon and Nan in order to move toward a final proposal.
So you're saying this is something that the chairs are working on independently on their own? Because then we're not meeting for a couple weeks. So that kind of brings into the second half of this question, is that what is the time frame that the expectation is to work through this? To Jim's point that Demetria had kind of echoed, there's a lot of specific governance issues that are going to be teased out by both boards, not necessarily just their chairs. And, I know everybody keeps using the word vacuum, but this, to me, this was done almost in the vacuum, very much as a surprise to me. And I hear you go to the chair, and I will have a conversation with Stephen outside of this meeting. But this doesn't, I'm trying to figure out how this is going to work. What is your time frame for the expectation? Because it's the August 15th. We're meeting on the 2nd. It's 2 weeks from now. It's end of summer. Are we talking mid-September, October? Are we talking next week? What is the time frame of this thing?
Yeah, and I think that's a really valid question. I mean, obviously, I think in order to move forward, we have to start as soon as reasonably possible. I would love to be prepared enough to vote on this a week from now. If there's a feeling that that's not possible, and it very might not be, then I think that there's input needed from everyone sitting here as to when that should happen, when you feel comfortable voting on something. And I'm not going to speak for your words. I'm just going to speak for here. It probably needs more time than I wish it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, I want it to happen fast because we want to be responsive to our community, but it is hard to rush this especially in August.
If I could, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So I think that all the input tonight and, conversation with Leon and with the superintendent, the governance to me, the governance is the first document. I mean, just by listening around the room without a vote, there seems to be a consensus that we're going to move forward with something. What that something needs to be flushed out in the governance. And I think once that governance document is done and shared to both chairs, which then will go to the committee, so that you don't violate the open meeting law in regards to where you put feedback to, and that is usually to the non-elected people. So when you get the governance, have any questions? From my recommendation would be from the select board side, we talk to Leon.
Yeah.
From the school side, superintendent, assistant superintendent, whoever is chosen to get your feedback. And then I think that when that feedback is done and it's sort of flushed out, there still might be some small points, but I think in generally, the governance should be, then come back and we meet and we can vote in, if there's issues, the professional staff talk to each other of, this works, this doesn't work, and leave it up to them to take your feedback and make the changes. And once the governance document is done, in a parallel, an RFP should be put together, so there's no time. So you have the governance, the RFP, and when then that's ready, submit it to the committees to look at, yes, no, and then move forward. In the meantime, if whatever the structure is and who the people are, once the governance document is improved, then they meet because now they have their charge. They know what they're getting into. And then the RFP can be released, evaluations done by the committee. So my sense is that, I'm looking for a governance document. Our next meeting after this is September 11th. I would expect by September 11th that we have a draft of a document to look at, as well as the RFP. So then now I know now you're getting into October, but in order to do it right, everybody, but the message is that we're moving forward. And just because we aren't formally, the steering committee isn't meeting doesn't mean that everything stops, because there's still work behind the scene that needs to be done concerning on the school side, your educational, whatever direction the committee and with the superintendent's help is going to go through in an educational model. I mean, you guys are going to have to be working with that. And then I think so as the time frame, when you look at the months, and once you get a consultant, that's where it's important in the RFP that you put, what is the anticipated deliverables? And then when you have those community meetings and get it together. So yeah, you are, we're into 26, the early part of 26, first quarter, maybe beginning of the second quarter. So, I mean, those are just my suggestions on process moving forward.
Thank you, Jim.
I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. You're thinking that the boards would have a draft of the governance. You guys for your September 11th meeting, where the 2nd and the 17th, somewhere we can always move things around if we have to.
Whatever.
So, and then from that point, we would then come back together at some point to kind of go through this, I guess, as a group to then vote on it. So we're talking late September? Is that the theory?
That's my realistic, and also know that you're opening school. And there's a lot that go on with opening schools, and your committee is going to be, super busy with all the things that happen with opening a school. So, I mean, I think that's, Chris, that's a realistic expectation.
I agree. I think that is a realistic timeframe. I'm also hoping that between now and when this governance document, before that, the September 11th part of this, is that it's not just, this feels very, not to go back into the discussion piece, but this does feel very reactionary to me. The reactionary is doing this very quickly, trying to put this through, than being proactive. And maybe that's just my feeling. What I'm hoping for is that there's a lot of community involvement between now and then saying, I hear what you're doing, but we want you to rather focus on that. So we'd rather you look at these. That'll help us draft kind of a governance of what we're looking at and getting feedback from now to that point. Because if the feedback from the town is saying, what is this just another study that's going to get thrown in a jar? Because in 12 years from now, when we go to build whatever, it's obsolete, we have to redo it. I don't want that to happen either.
Yeah, and to me, that's the role of the steering committee, and the steering committee should be guiding the process to make sure that exactly what you're talking about is what happens.
But I think we also need what the governance is, what this committee is actually going to achieve. That can be taken out from the community, what the community wants to see in this as part of that governance document. So we don't have another SBRC kind of stalemate situation. That's my point, is getting community feedback starts now into this entire process, including the governance document. I'm good now. Thanks.
So, Madam Chair, just to kind of, finish up on that, I think that, this was a really good first step for all of us, right? And I think bringing it up and having questions and having passion here is what's really important, and not just saying, yep, check, stamp, it's okay, right? Go back, figure it out. It does start now, right? I'm sure social media is already getting going, right? So it does start now. We want to hear from people. We want communication coming from our chairs to us, which is a lot of work, right? Or who's ever on this committee. It really is hard to communicate out, but it really has to happen to all board members and to the community. And I think we have starting of a really good plan.
Work.
Thank you for all your work on it.
Thank you.
And
I
for your
just have
opposing
one-
view.
This is very minor, I promise. It's a request. If this is going to be made public, Mr. Polito brought this up before, and I just want to circle back to it. Can we please include Capen? It was missing on one of the slides, and I think it's important because technically the school committee has the purview of 8 buildings, and only 7 are currently being used to educate students. So in the spirit of putting it all out there, let's just make sure it's added to that slide.
Do we
Thank
have
you.
to add the barn? Are we doing anything with the barn?
What's the barn?
Endicott barn?
Endicott barn.
Endicott barn.
You got a barn?
Endicott Estate is on
The
here.
one that burned
Is that
down.
the cottage?
The one that burned down.
It was the one.
That is,
That was the property.
that's looking at that,
No,
okay.
but we received some.
Anyways, you can make the adjustment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, thank
I'll make the
you.
adjustment, that's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll do the facility assessment on the barn.
Okay.
All right, so now that we're, 49 minutes behind
We
schedule.
have a lot ahead of us.
Yeah, if any members of the public would like to speak to this agenda item, specifically limited to the agenda item, which is establishment of a facilities master plan work group and the process, please let us know that you'd like to speak and have state your name, address, and a 2-minute limit, please. There is a list, I can't see it from here.
You don't get it?
Yeah, I'll get it.
Spin.
Thank you. On Zoom, okay.
And Jim
And
Har
Jim.
also.
All right, Jim, I'll put your name down. All right, Matt.
Okay. Hi, Matt Reedy, 63 Lincoln Street. I want to offer the perspective of a parent of 2 young children. I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old who will attend the Oakdale School when they go to elementary, now the oldest school, oldest building in this town. We have a serious school building crisis in this town. It's not something to be taken lightly. We also have a financial crisis in this town, and the two are very closely related. I can tell you that, they don't give tours of the school buildings to prospective home buyers, but if I had gotten a tour of the inside of the Oakdale building, I probably wouldn't have moved to this town, to be honest. But now that I'm here, I am going to fight like hell for better school buildings and better facilities for our kids because they need them and they deserve them. So do our teachers. Let's not forget all the Oakdale teachers who came several months ago and really pled their case. I can tell you that the thought of my kids going to school in the Oakdale building, particularly, my youngest won't be she could be in that building 8 years from now. It'll be 130 plus years old. That keeps me up at night. I can tell you the governance document for the steering committee does not keep me up at night. So just keep in mind that I get that it's important and it's a thing that we need to do. But at the end of the day, we need new school buildings. The only thing that matters is if the vote passes, whatever that vote turns out to be. And what we saw in this last vote was that people were looking for more information, they were looking for more data, and we didn't have it. A great example is there was a lot of questions about temporary classrooms if we were to renovate the Oakdale school instead of building a new one. And we didn't really have an answer as to how much that would cost. Without that data, people filled in the blanks, used their imaginations, and they voted against the school because they didn't trust the data, that it was the right cost. We need to avoid that happening again, and this master plan it should and it will help us do that. We need to slow down to speed up, meaning we can't just shoot from the hip and say, let's just go again without a strategy or without a plan. There were folks in Riverdale, for example, who were saying, hey, what happens to the Riverdale school after this Oakdale school passes? Oh, there's no real answer to that question. There were folks who were concerned about the high school, and we would tell folks, if you pass this Oakdale school, let us get to the high school faster. So it's a reason to support it, but there was no actual proof of that. There was no plan. People didn't buy that argument. So we really need more information and more data, and this master plan is what I believe is going to get that for us. And we need to do it as soon as possible. I'm willing to wait, despite the state of the buildings, I'm willing to wait that 18 months or whatever it takes, because I think it gives us the best chance at any vote passing. And at the end of the day, all of it is wasted time, wasted money if it just doesn't pass again. I have three quick questions. I don't know if we're taking questions, but just things to consider about the master plan. One, the notice that came out ahead of time specifically said fields and parks were not included in the scope of the plan. I just wanted to understand that because I think, like, just to give an example, there have been folks floating a plan like, let's build new schools at Memorial Field. Will we get an answer as to whether or not that's feasible or how much that would cost if fields and parks are not included in the scope? I'm not sure. I'm genuinely asking that question, but it's something to think about. I also liked the idea of maybe having the Parks and Rec Department involved in this in some fashion, again, because they do have a stake in that, as well as some of the buildings. My second question or comment on the plan is about the possibility of understanding how to offset the costs. So again, like if we consolidate school buildings, for example, can we sell one of the buildings to recoup some of the costs, limit the taxpayer burden? This was thoroughly evaluated when they looked at the town green, for example. They looked at different possibilities for that space, including selling it for other purposes. Last thing, this one, it might be a little bit out there, but I'd be really interested in seeing a cost-neutral plan for the schools. When I say cost-neutral, I mean, what would it look like if this town was never willing to vote to increase taxes? And I assume that would mean you have to take substantial amounts of money away from other departments or something like that, but it would be really interesting to see and present that as an option to folks before any vote as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a member, Jim. Yeah, we also have someone online, but feel free to come up first, Jim. Yep.
Jim Marr, 22 Sherman Road, town meeting member. I'm concerned about the scope of the article because having watched all the FinCom meetings, because they had a very hard task as part of the whole town meeting process. And then watch the town facilities person get up and say that he really needed $500,000 to do a true evaluation of all of our facilities. That's the buildings, just the buildings. So now you're taking the $300,000 that he was, I believe he thought he was going to evaluate the buildings with inspectors, foundations, framing, everything is what the scope of, I thought this article was. We didn't give him the full $500,000, we gave him $300,000, and now you're taking that money and putting together a steering committee, hiring a consultant to evaluate the community's input. What does that leave the facilities director to be able to get a true evaluation of what the issues of our buildings are? So that's the first thing that I would say I have a problem with your scope, because as a town meeting member, I didn't vote on a steering committee. I didn't vote for a committee to put input. I was voting on experts going through our buildings and really evaluating what our true issues were. So that's me as a town meeting member, and there may be other town meeting members who believe the same way. Secondly, having been part of a master plan committee for Parks and Rec. Do you want to?
Oh, just if you could conclude your comments over 2 minutes.
I wasn't told there was a time limit.
Oh, I said it at the outset, sorry.
So as a member of a master plan committee, we worked for a year to put together a master plan for Parks and Rec. Number one recommendation was the Stryer property to be developed into parks and for the community. Number two, as part of those recommendations, was the rail trail. One of them voted down by town meeting by one vote. Never got to the voters. The second one went to the voters and was voted down. So you could be expending all this money with a committee report, you name it, and you're still going to get voted down until you actually figure out the financial problems in this town. And I don't believe this new committee's going to be able to do it. We have a tendency to study everything in this town, and then it never gets funded. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. We have someone online like to comment?
Okay. Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. We have a 2-minute time limit.
Sorry, I apologize. All right, here we go. My name is Carmen Campbell Haggerty. I live at 57 Holmes Road. After hearing this discussion this evening, I'm 100% against this process. Members of the community have been waiting for months to discuss what we're going to be doing with the schools. Elementary schools or high schools, we need a plan. We, as family members, cannot wait 18 months to get a plan to start a new discussion. Dedham is losing money left and right. We're shutting down programs at the Avery. Where did this $300,000 come from? According to Jim Mark, this wasn't the scope that was approved at town meeting. And it sounds like this was 3 or 4 people talking about this behind closed doors and then coming to this meeting this evening and presenting it. And some of the select board members didn't even know the amount of money being spent. That's very concerning for myself that the community was involved in this process. Nobody was involved in this process. Also, you're taking a vote in the middle of August when many people are away on vacation. I myself am going tomorrow. This is the back room, not sharing. Everyone's so worried about community process. Not one person, not one parent that I'm aware of knew about this. And I think you all need to take a step back about that because this is something we've been saying from day one. Also, in regards to this committee, these people that you're putting on this committee, is it a cross-representation of the whole entire town? When you're talking about schools, we have representation from Riverdale, Oakdale, Green Lodge, all of us, Avery, because that's what it happened with the SBRC. There was no representation for Green Lodge in the Manor neighborhood, and you wanted to shut down our school. So I am asking everyone on this committee, please do not vote this through. It does not seem to me like it's been thought through. I think everyone is panicking. People don't know what to do, and they're just throwing things out there, and they're going to waste $300,000 for a paper that has all this information that's going to go in 18 months. We're going to be back taking steps
At time.
now.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlene. And for clarification, a vote is not on tonight's agenda. Anyone else from the public in the room or online? Okay.
on.
All right.
Take a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn school committee meeting.
Is there a second? Need a roll call vote, Mr. Stefano?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Dr. Gallant?
Yes.
Toledo?
Yes.
Amy? Chair votes yes. Mr. Langmead is indisposed either way. 6-0. We
6-0,
are.
no.
Thank you, everyone.
I agree.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, moving along with the select board agenda.